Hi, I'm MarzGurl.
I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
Welcome to episode 103 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover Season 2, Episode 52 of City Hunter, titled Reunion After 20 Years. Please Look After My Sister, Mr. Sayaba, Part 1.
We're getting back into kind of normal anime territory.
I mean, yes and no, because, again, like, talking about this episode, again, we haven't watched this in about, give or take, 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird how now, more so than before, since we're doing this for podcasting reasons, I'm starting to notice all of these different things, like, maybe this got animated at the same time as one of the other older episodes in this season. Like, I don't think they animated them in order necessarily, because of the art style that we're going to see a lot of here.
Well, yeah, production order often is different from broadcast order. That does happen a lot. That having been said, sometimes you just get different art directors for different episodes, and they don't necessarily work on them one right after the other either. So we don't know what order they were produced in. We don't really know.
But what's cool about this episode is, luckily, this is one of the ones that we actually have the corresponding manga chapter to refer back to, so we can make that comparison in notes.
Yeah, I've been sitting on this one for a while. The volume that I've got to correspond with right now was published by Xenon Comics Deluxe DX. Volume 7 seems to be something of a omnibus kind of publication.
Omnibus,
yeah, so this was published later than, this wasn't published as it was coming out. This had been compiled much later. And I've just kind of been sitting and waiting for another episode of the anime to correspond with the manga, and it has felt like several episodes of the anime in a row have kind of tried to be filler, because several manga chapters prior to this were all animated, but then suddenly we didn't have those for a while.
And now here we can see, comparing between the manga and this episode, a lot of it got visually lifted straight off the page.
It is very one-for-one, with only a couple of really small examples. One really funny one that is
that's gonna be great.
That is at all different between the manga and the anime. Otherwise, it's very, very the same.
We understand, though, why the change was made.
Oh, sure.
It's gonna be a very, very obvious change, but, it's just really funny, and that's why you guys are tuning in, because otherwise you'd never know.
Unless you were also reading the manga, and I'm pretty sure still, to this day, the legal English publication that's buried in that Coamics app
hasn't caught up yet.
I do not believe it's come anywhere close to catching up, so you just gotta talk to me, I guess, or go read Scanlation.
Don't tell them to do that. Just stick with Coamics and they'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
But seeing as we didn't have any other news to talk about, we can go ahead and get right into the episode because we've got a lot to cover here. So as you can kind of tell by the title here, we're going to see the introduction of a character that we kind of mentioned last week, which is going to be Kaori's blood-related sister, who I believe it's going to be her half-sister, right?
It was kind of confusing because she kept bringing up their mother, but then she also kept saying, this comes up a little bit later, but she mentions, my dad divorced my mom, and then she ran off with Kaori, so maybe they're not half-blooded.
So then they are full-blooded, like I thought originally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. She's going by her mother's maiden name.
Yes.
So.
And so we'll go ahead and tell you guys right here at the top that the name of this character is Sayuri Tachiki, which of course Tachiki being the maiden name like you just mentioned. So Sayuri starts off the episode meeting up with Sayako down at Metro PD, asking her to look into a kind of sort of, but not really, missing persons case. And she's like, I think you know who this person is, and maybe you can tell me where they are. I'm looking for Kaori Hisaishi.
Sayako's just like, I know a Kaori, but not a Hisaishi.
But Sayuri confirms with her, well, her birth name was Hisaishi, but I heard that now she goes by Makimura.
Oh, yeah, I know that person. Wait, why do you know that name? Oh, 'cause I'm her sister. Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Well, that was kind of a bombshell in the first, minute.
I guess you can sort of see the resemblance in the face. Sayuri's hair is much longer. She's wearing kind of more nice office-y, business-y attire. Well, like a nice skirt and
yeah, you can definitely see that the way that she comes off throughout the whole episode is that she's a much more put-together person. Mainly because she's had a completely different life, I think.
Right. They haven't grown up the same. They're doing just totally different things. Like, she's actually living like a normal person would, who would have have grown up and gotten a normal job, and, well, Kaori never had that because the person who she ended up getting adopted by and then calling her brother did some really weird work. Like, he was a police officer for a second, and then he stopped doing the police work, and then he started doing
Sweeper work.
Tangentially related work, which was slightly less than legal, and then Kaori just kind of fell into that. So that's why they are very, very different people.
And to go ahead and clarify, Sayuri is the older of the two sisters.
By 2 years.
By 2 years, yeah. So if Kaori at the time of Makimura's death was 20, she's 22, so now 2 years having passed since then, that puts Sayuri at 24 years old.
And Kaori's probably about 22 at this point.
Thereabouts, yeah. So across town, we go over to see Ryo, who's actually visiting Makimura's grave right now. Now, Kaori doesn't know where he went. She just knows that he took off because he got a call from Sayako and just assumes that they went out to do some illicit stuff. But he did leave behind the little dummy of himself that he sometimes leaves.
Kaori's just wailing on this dummy. She throws it across the room and realizes, oh no, I knocked off the ring box that was a memento of my brother. And she doesn't really know the full story behind this ring box. If you think back to that episode right at the beginning of the series, episode 5, Ryo does give her the ring, but he doesn't give the full explanation of, this is from your brother who was holding on to it because your dad died and said to give it to you on your 20th birthday. Also, he planned on telling you that you were adopted, and like that none of that ever came out.
Which is exactly the thing that Ryo is going to bring up right here, because he, of all things, to show you how much this means to everybody, Sayako told Ryo to meet her at Makimura's grave, of all places.
It's interesting looking at it in the manga. You can see there's a difference in the death dates of Makimura, because Makimura in the manga died in 1985, because that's when the manga was published. But then in the anime, he died in 1987, because that's when the anime came out. So it's a difference of 2 years, but it's like a no-duh. Like,
well,
yeah,
I mean, it's just a thing that happens with adaptation. It's like Batman's parents dying. They just move up what movie they were seeing based on how recently the movie was made.
Right, exactly. Also, the only other, like, very minor difference is that, aside from the clothes, because they just keep putting Ryo into the blue jacket for the sake of the anime, Ryo's wearing, you know, kind of the more detective kind of trench coaty looking thing that
which he wears more often in the manga.
He often does in the manga, and he's smoking. And, like, you'll just kind of notice they've eliminated a lot of his drinking and smoking from the anime. It's not none, but it's pretty close to a goose egg in the anime.
Because the thing of it is, like, they don't seem to have a problem with showing him getting his drink on.
Like, if it's funny, yes. If it's super serious, there's gonna be a scene much later on. In the manga, he's drinking to be serious and sad and mopey, but they've eliminated him drinking there.
Like, I think here in the anime, the only times you see him smoking at all is in the Get Wild ending.
Right, I don't recall another time in the anime where he smokes. But in the manga, yeah, he's somewhat of a casual smoker. Like, not a chain smoker, but...
Not like Spike Spiegel levels.
He takes the edge off sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes he needs that, but I guess that makes sense for his line of work.
Sure.
So yes, they're there at Makimura's gravestone, which again, that has to mean something, that they had the money to put down on an actual Western-style gravestone.
Right.
But on top of that, when Sayako shows up, Ryo reiterates to her basically the same thing you just said about the explanation of the ring and all of that, that it's been 2 full years and he hasn't gotten through to telling Kaori, hey, Makimura wanted me to tell you you're adopted.
So now he's learning that Kaori's got a sister and the sister's here right now, and because Kaori is not aware of what her entire past is, Ryo is like, I don't really know what you want me to do about this.
But before he does that, he has to get a good look at Sayuri, and admittedly, because she's Kaori's sister, she is very attractive to Ryo, especially because of the fact that she's all put together like that. And at first, it's off-putting to him, because it's like, well, there's no way you're related, you're so much more put together. I'm gonna jump at you and see what happens here.
Yes, they're clearly related, because Sayuri pulls out a 100-ton hammer. So this is just a blood-related thing?
It's genetic.
It's genetic, that they're fucking aliens, and...
They're hammer mages.
I guess. Yeah. You know, the way that white mages in Final Fantasy, they're really good with hammers. That's like one of the few weapons they can actually use. So I don't know. I don't know why they can do this. You just kind of have to go with it. But my brain wants to create a logical reason why it is they can do this. It's not gonna happen. I just really want to make it work and be tangible and be something I can fully understand.
We'll workshop it. We'll get back to it in part 2.
Okay.
And for what it's worth here, I just wanted to bring up here, Ryo had amazing hair right before he got hit. Like,
Well,
they drew his hair so 80s and full.
When they were specifically standing in front of Makimura's grave, yes. It was really well drawn. Lots of really well drawn faces in this episode, actually, to be honest with you.
So Sayuri starts to go ahead and have this conversation with Ryo about how it was actually only just 2 years ago that she found out that her sister was still alive, which absolutely times out with when Makimura kicked the bucket.
Yeah, this is pretty convenient timing, I'm not gonna lie.
And she's like, well, now that I know she's alive, she's my only blood relative. I'd really love to meet her. I've heard everything about what's happened, about, her getting adopted by the Makimuras, and then I asked Saiko for help. She referred me to you, so you must know where she is. Can you tell me where she is? And immediately you can tell Ryo's being defensive/pensive about this, because he's immediately dropped hitting on her because she's attractive. Now it's, we're down to the real shit right now.
So he has to explain to her, as he was already explaining to Sayako, she doesn't know about any of this.
And you just want to blindside her with this.
So are you just gonna, take her away and go move in together and live with her because she's your family? And Sayuri's like, you know what, I actually don't know. I don't know her well enough to be able to say, but she is my only blood relative, and I want to meet her.
And so Ryo thinks about it for a minute, and he's like, all right, I will take you to her right now, but I want you to meet a condition, or more like a favor for me. I want you to try living with her for like a week, just to see what she's like. And after that, you can make your own determination as to what you guys should do.
You can decide what would be best for her, if she would be happy going with you after all of that, because we don't know yet. We just don't know, but we gotta go and find out. And they go down to the apartment, but Ryo's gotta stop them outside his front door. And he's like, hold on. We can't go in just yet. This is where the attack comes in. Let me go ahead and trigger her trap for a second first. And so he just shouts out, kind of stepping away from the front door, just barely off to the side, and says, Kaori, I came back home.
And he just opens the door a little bit as though he were going to go through, and just wall is smashed by a giant-ass hammer, and he knew it was going to happen. By this point, not only has he learned, we also know he can see it coming. He knows.
Of course he knows.
And so he thinks...
Well, the problem is that he knows it, and he thinks that that's all that there is.
He thinks he activated the only trap card she had.
So he tries to go through the door again, and he gets hit in the face with the Konpeito number 2, which we discussed the Konpeito before. It's really just like an enormous mace.
Yes.
Right? It's just a huge-ass mace that is larger than the size of his body, which, again, they call it the Konpeito because it looks like a piece of candy by the same name that is like a ball with sugary spikes coming off of it. It came from some other country like Portugal or something. Doesn't matter. We don't need to retread all of that. That's just what that thing is.
But the thing of it is that I think is really important to mention is not just that she used the hammer and she used the Konpeito again. You would think for a second like, oh, it was like on a chain hanging from the roof or something and she had it swing.
She threw it. She swung it through the door on a chain with her own arms.
Because it's attached to a sickle on the end. Like, she's going Ninja Gaiden on his ass.
And so Ryo from, behind getting hit by this thing is like, oh yeah, Sayuri, so hey, this is Kaori. And Sayuri's just horrified.
Well, yeah, because look at Kaori right now. She's in this, Chinese-inspired blouse. She's holding a chain and sickle, and she's, growling at Ryo, like, how dare you run off with Saiko and do whatever it is you're doing? Like, she looks extreme right now.
Yeah, so she's horrified. Like, no, my sister. I had such a different image of who I thought this was going to be.
And see, that's going to be the crux of the episode here, is that Sayuri, having never interacted with her before in her life, is making all of these assumptions about Kaori and the kind of person she built up in her head, and how that doesn't gel with the version of her that's right in front of her.
There's a lot of that. Some of it is a little offensive.
Well, certainly ignorant, for sure.
Sure, yeah.
And so now, Ryo's trying to tell Kaori, alright, well, the reason she's here is because she's hired us to do a job. Problem is, Sayuri didn't fill in Ryo on any details details.
Well, Ryo is purely under the assumption that the only reason why Sayuri is there is because she wants to meet her sister, and so...
Which is true.
So, well, yes and no. That is half of the reason, and Ryo thinks that's the only reason. And so Ryo, under that assumption, like when Kaori asks, so what's the job? He's just like, and he thinks he has to make something up, because he was not prepared to answer anything other than she wants to meet her sister, and he can't say that because she doesn't know she's adopted and has a sister, and like this was a big thing.
Like it's too much to say out front. But thankfully Sayuri fills in all the details here and tells them, oh well, as it turns out, do you guys read Weekly World News? Or no, not Weekly World News, because that's a tabloid. Weekly News. Gotta get the world out of there, otherwise it's a completely different magazine. Do you guys read Weekly News? I happen to be the editor of that magazine.
Oh, no shit.
And they're like really taken aback, like, oh my god, that's such a respected news article paper. Like, that's amazing. Like, you're the editor? Wow.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of threats and stuff. Yeah, it really sucks. So, we got Ryo here, and Ryo's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
This is the first time he's hearing it, and he thinks, oh wow, she's really good at this job, because she just made something up on the fly. Man, she's good at this.
And so, because the story sounds pretty legitimate, Kaori accepts it as like, oh wow, that's a real newspaper, you work there, there's a real threat, okay, yeah, we'll take the job, fine. And so she sticks around for dinner, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea here, of course, like, Ryo having to protect her, she needs to stay at the apartment, like many other cases have had happen. And so they're having dinner together, and for whatever reason, I don't know if Ryo was playing this up or if he really does treat Kaori like this on a nightly basis. He's just riding her ass, and not in the way that he would like to ride other women's asses. He's just like,
oh man, thanks for the food. Too bad your cooking just never improves. Anyway, I'm gonna go take a bath, so grind up some coffee. Oh, but also draw the bath for me. Also, don't forget to not draw the bath too hot. Like, he just keeps going.
Also, where's my coffee? Like,
I just asked you to grind these beans. Where is it?
Like, he's being such an asshole right now.
Yeah, very
which makes
chauvinist.
Me think he's being,
yeah,
it's like he's being extra chauvinist. Yeah, you're right. And I'm wondering whether or not he's playing that up on purpose, if only to kind of show Sayuri, look, for whatever reason, no matter how awful I can be to her, she wants to be here.
Or he's just doing what he usually does because he thinks this is very funny and it's going to get a rise out of Kaori, and I just love doing this to her, even though I don't actually expect her to just be on everything like that. It's one of those. It could be all of those all at once.
And the thing is, you can see that Kaori clearly isn't down with any of this. She's like gritting her teeth as she's grinding these coffee beans by hand, mind you. Like, no instant coffee here. No Folgers.
She comes off as though she's just playing up how mad she is. Like, this is just part of, if this were to change, she would almost miss getting angry at him.
Well, because that's what I'm wondering about, too. Like, you could imagine it's a little bit of being played up, too, but is that not what their relationship has evolved into by this point? That they know that this is the routine, this is the is the shtick, this is the sitcom that they have both agreed to being their lives, and they're actually both really happy.
Right, and Sayuri doesn't know that. She doesn't understand that. Just like you can imagine anybody whose life you look in on through like social media or on YouTube or on any live stream or whatever, right? And you think you understand that person or how happy or how miserable they are, but you're only getting a glimpse of that person and you don't actually know what the ins and outs of their daily lives are, what their routine is.
You think you know, but you don't know their life.
Yeah, you don't know.
And so Sayuri like goes busting into Ryo's room as he's reading a dirty magazine.
Skebe. I love that that's the title of it. So it's like Lecher, you know, is the name of this dirty magazine.
Also, the girl on the front looks like Launch from Dragon Ball.
I will always say lunch. I know that there's a debate.
Launch, same deal. You know who I'm talking about.
Look. I know there is a debate, and there is room for it. That having been said, Akira Toriyama loves food puns. I don't understand how we can't just stick with lunch.
I understand that the council has made a decision, but it's a dumbass decision.
No, it isn't.
Well, okay,
then I just have a preference.
Then I just have a preference. That's how I learned it.
Like, it's not actually a big deal. I'm just over here like, we should have just landed on one and stuck with it.
We should have, but I mean, You know what that's like in Final Fantasy. Butts, Barts, you've been here.
No. Butts was never official. That never happened. It was in some pamphlet once. It was never
I'm just saying,
actually...
it happens. It happens.
It was never official, though. The thing about lunch, both of them have been official before, and that is stupid. They should have just picked one.
I know. But yeah, Sayuri, like, comes busting into Ryo's room, and she's like, what do you think you're doing treating her like that? Are you really planning on marrying her? Because that's the way you're treating her, like she's your wife or maid or whatever, and the only way that would be cool is if you filled out your gender roles and you got married. Is that what's gonna happen here?
Ryo's just like, whoa, you're jumping to a lot of conclusions here, alright? She's just here because she wants to be here, and we don't even sleep in the same bed or anything. Like, I would have taken it a step farther and said, we don't even sleep on the same floor of this building.
They don't.
And he's just like, we don't even bang. What do you want from me? But Kaori overheard at least that part.
The last part of we don't even bang. I would never do Mokkori with her. And the thing of it is, I think Ryo is relying on the fact that he knows Sayuri has no idea of what their relationship is.
Sure.
She hasn't been listening to this podcast, so she doesn't know that they just kissed a couple of weeks ago.
Also, it's 1989. What is a podcast?
Okay, sorry. Radio call-in show. But without the call-ins. And so Kaori shows up having only heard, we're not banging, why would I bang her, I'm not going to bang her, and she took that personal.
So she's finally made that coffee, and she comes in with it, and she just slams it down on the table, and then also slams him in the face with the tray that she was using to carry it, and she's just like, well, excuse me for not putting out.
Why don't you get another assistant, you ass? And it's at this point that Ryo's like, you see what I'm dealing with here? She's too powerful.
I loved the she's too powerful line.
That's him giving her credit. Like, I can't deal with that power level. This power scaling in this anime is very broken. Just give it a week.
But also,
you're gonna see what this is about. Just give it a week.
The tray is still stuck on his face, and it's like molded to every facet of his face.
He's the latest Batman villain, Tray Face.
Tray Face. It's quite frightening to look at. It's really freaking Sayuri out, and like he hasn't removed it. Like he could just take it off, but he has not done that yet.
So at the beginning of this part of the episode, Ryo demonstrated, I know how this goes, so I need you to hold back from walking into Kaori. So Kaori knows how this goes too, and she's like, well, obviously, you're staying in my room tonight, Sayuri, because I don't want you anywhere near Ryo, because you don't know how handsy he can get. And so they're in Kaori's room changing, like, into night clothes, right?
Because, you know, they're two women, they're gonna change together in Kaori's room, and Sayuri's just like, how can you just be living here with this man? Like, you're not worried about that? And Kaori's like, he doesn't even think of me as a woman. You are in way more trouble than I am.
Like, why are you even his assistant, though? And she just says straight up, I like it.
Like, she has to kind of reiterate this a few times over the course of the episode, and Sayuri just kind of, it does not compute to her. It, like, goes in one ear and out the other, like, oh, no woman would want to do any of this. What are you
admittedly, you can see where she's coming from, though. She's like, oh, she's brainwashed. This is Stockholm Syndrome. I need to get her out of here.
I need to save her.
And as if to punctuate the point a little harder, like, Sayuri gets the feeling, I feel as though I'm being watched and I'm just here in my underwear and my bra.
With the blinds open? For some reason?
Now, mind you, they're on like the 4th or 5th floor, right?
Sure.
So surely there shouldn't be anybody out the window on the 4th or 5th floor.
But Kaori knows better than that. She should have closed the blinds.
Because here on the outside, gripping to the outside wall with just his toes, is acrobat Ryo Saiba.
Well, like, not only is he gripping with just his toes, but he's also, like, kind of arched his back to look up with his head facing up. Like, he's upside down. But he's bent backwards.
He's like a number 6 out the window.
Ish, like he almost completes the 6. He doesn't like get all the way head to his back, right? Like, but he's pretty close, and he's got that creepy peeping Tom grin going on. He's got one of those, yeah. So this is where what is possibly the biggest difference between the manga and the anime pops up, and it's not that it's like hugely different, but I think the manga is funnier.
Well, because to start with, here in the anime, of course, course, Kaori sees Ryo peeping through the window, so she throws the hammer out the window to try and hit him, and he, does this really good ab crunch to get out of the way.
Right.
But unfortunately, the wall gives way, and he falls, 4 stories. That's the anime.
The manga is the same, but...
With one.
With one very important addition, an enormous boner. Just the biggest tent pitched.
We've told you guys this before. The manga is so horny. Ryo is so horny in the manga, and he constantly is drawn with boners all the time.
All the time, but we can't draw that on TV, which is why we gave him the phrase mokkori to begin with, because mokkori, it comes up as a sound effect when he gets a boner, but he doesn't really use it as a catchphrase in the manga. It's just what it had to become in order to be self-referential
to transition into TV.
In the anime, right.
So here he is, this number 6 out the window, but with an asterisk or an apostrophe or whatever you want to call it. It's damn near an exclamation point as much as it's sticking out. And so here in the manga, when he does the ab crunch to get out of the way of the hammer,
he literally face plants into...
I'm looking at it again and it got me the same.
He's literally face planted into his own penis.
He hit himself in the face with his own boner, people. He hit himself in the face with his own boner.
He has to peel his own face out from his dick.
He does.
And it makes this little sound effect that's like zoop.
It was in bed. He doesn't have a nose anymore.
No, he hit his nose against his own wiener so hard, his nose caved into his face.
Yeah. He hit himself so hard with his own boner, he got isekai. That's how hard he hit himself.
And so he falls... He falls off the wall, like he does in the anime, and he hits the ground. And Kaori yells at him on the way down in both versions, but additionally in the manga, she also is flipping him the bird. I guess for some reason they did not feel like they could commit to that on TV.
No, certainly not in the 80s, but these are great panels here for comedy.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna need to share the panels of the manga on social media.
You're gonna have to spoiler tag that one, though.
I really am.
It's gigantic. I can't say it any other way. It's the way it was drawn. He hit himself with his own wiener. I'm sorry.
Otherwise, the anime goes almost 1-for-1, along with what happens in the manga.
So we go to the next day. I'm sorry. We go to the next day, and Ryo's still sore from everything that happened the night before. And he goes to the kitchen, and he sees Sayuri there with Kaori, and they're just getting along like they were never apart. They're there talking, chatting up, trying recipes out, and Ryo, for the first time, actually seems to get the hint of this might be a strong possibility that she might not want to stay here anymore.
She might find a really normal life with actual family, and she could leave. And if that happened... Oh no.
That'd make Ryo sad.
I would, you can tell, he doesn't think about on a daily basis. Everybody probably takes the people they love for granted a little bit, right?
Right.
I think that's true of everybody. You have to be reminded from time to time. You'll see somebody on social media be like, oh man, I just lost this particular loved one. You guys gotta go home and hug your families, hug your loved ones, because you don't know when that's gonna be the last time. And you have to be reminded of that kind of shit. And so I feel that way about Ryo too. right? Like, he doesn't understand how much he takes Kaori for granted.
Well, I don't know about that, because think about it. Just 2 episodes ago, everything happened up there with the atomic bomb in Shinjuku and the kiss, and he knows that he could have lost her then.
Sure, he knows then, but you saw he immediately went back to his old behavior. When he felt like he was comfortable and things were back to normal, his behavior went back to normal. But now, he sees Kaori being happy with somebody else who has kinda sorta talked about taking her away, maybe, possibly, we don't really know yet, and he realizes that actually could be a possibility. Oh shoot, I might lose her, and now I'm thinking about it, and I don't stop to think about this, but that actually makes me sad, and I do not like the way that feels.
And so he gets these like puppy dog eyes, looking off into the distance there in the hallway. And funny enough, you're pointing out to me, these are the same puppy dog eyes that they give him here in the manga.
He looks super boyish.
Like, this is the youngest I've ever seen him drawn there.
Right,
Aside from, being a child militia soldier.
That's a very different thing. And he was much more serious as a child militia soldier.
Very true. But clearly this has got him thinking, the best thing for Kaori is for her to get, a good amount of time with her. She's spent plenty of time with me already. She needs to get to know this person better. So
she just needs to do whatever it is and find out what it is that does make her the happiest. Because overall, that is what he wants for her. He does want her to choose what her happiest life is.
And he is genuinely concerned with that. And I think the difference here is that Ryo is concerned with Kaori deciding and Sayori thinking she already knows what's best for Kaori and what makes her happy.
Those are two very different things. And yet, it's interesting. Ryo never, firmly asserts that he knows what is best for Kaori. He kinda just keeps letting Sayori think that she knows or that she understands, or just is giving her a chance to, if she doesn't know it now, she's gonna figure it out. He never tries to get in the way of it. It's just whatever it's gonna be, it's gonna be.
And so, kind of playing into that, once they're done cooking or whatever, they're in the kitchen, they meet up with him in the living room, and he tells Kaori, all right, today you're going to be in charge of guarding Sayuri. I want you to go with her to her job, make sure everything's safe, and keep her guarded all day. Can you do that?
Oh yeah, sweet. That actually sounds really cool. He's trusting me to do a job, and I'm going to go do that job. This is awesome.
And of course, like any other time this has happened in the show, what that literally means is that Kaori is going to guard her while Ryo is around the corner.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that keeps happening, but fine, okay.
And so they're on their way to the newspaper where Sayuri works, and it just so happens that on the way there, there's some guy in coveralls, and what's he got there in his hand?
A knife!
No! And so Kaori, doing her job, pushes Sayuri out of the way and is getting ready to block with her handbag.
Yeah, she takes this purse, this kind of small purse, it is closer to the size of a handbag, and just goes, chops down on the knife with the handbag, and it looks like she herself broke the knife, but at the same time, you also hear a pew! You hear a ricochet, and I'm like, what was that?
And it's exactly what you would think it is if you've been keeping up with this. That's Ryo from around the corner with a silencer on his 357 Magnum, having broken the knife blade at the last possible second before it could do any harm to Kaori.
Mind you, Ryo is actually Kaori's getting better. Still, good thing I was here with this gun. But what the fuck? Is Sayuri actually in trouble? I thought she just made all that shit up on the spot. I thought she was only here to talk to her sister.
Now, you would think, looking at Kaori and what she just apparently did, that Kaori's being a boss right now,
sure.
Right? But that's not how Sayuri sees it at all. She's immediately, overtaken with,
oh my god,
with concern.
We have to put you into a normal situation where this isn't part of your daily, you're in trouble all the time. And yet, I'm sitting here thinking, had she not been there, you, as the normal, everyday office worker person, would have been in trouble. If she didn't know how to do that, let's say Kaori was a normal, everyday office worker person, and she hadn't built up the skills to protect herself. I don't think Kaori would have broken that knife in half, but she might have deflected that knife,
I mean, it depends how on she was.
She looked pretty on.
I think she could have done it.
Yeah, I think
because Kaori is way more capable and
Ryo
strong.
said she seemed more capable, but I think Ryo being there just finished the whole incident a little bit faster, that's all.
So now they're at Weekly News, where it turns out, yes, she is in fact the editor. Sayuri does run this whole building, or at least that whole floor. And she's a boss. She's a literal boss. She's like,
I'm looking over these articles and saying, all right, I'm making these notes. And she reads these articles so fast. Change this, add more details to this. All right, bring it back to me when you're done with that. And Kaori's just like, wow, that's so good. I wish I could do something like that. And Sayuri's like, oh, sweetie, no, no, don't say that. You could totally do this. Why don't you start working here from now on? She just kind of shoves her into an office position without filling in any paperwork or anything.
Well, she's just kind of like, here, try it out for a day. Try being my assistant. See how it goes. See if you like it. Yeah. And thinking it's going to go great.
Kaori's even like, wow, you're being real pushy about this. Okay, it's fine. And they immediately start her off on fax machine, which I think is a huge mistake. It would have been a mistake for me because, come on, fax machine. I know it's 1989. It's more common for everyone in 1989. But also, Japan, in 2023, why is it still common that you use fax machines? I think this would just be a huge problem.
I had a job, 5 years ago, where I was still using a fax machine. The last time I had an office job.
Literally just use a scanner and then send a PDF. Please don't.
I know.
Please don't be using fax machine. Anyway, so fax machine. All Kaori has to do is put the paper in the thing and then you dial the phone number and then that's all it's supposed to do. Okay? So in the anime, she just starts pushing buttons and they're not the number pad. She just starts pushing other buttons.
Too many buttons.
And then shabams! It blows up, Josh. It just blows up. Like, I don't even know how you do that, but this is one other thing that is different about the manga, is that she's so frustrated that she does not understand this fucking fax machine. She starts banging on it, she's screaming at it, she's kicking it, and then she pulls out her hammer, and she hits the fax machine with a hammer, with a 10-ton hammer.
So the difference here being that in the manga, she's more angry at the machinery she doesn't know how to use, whereas here in the anime...
Just the first machine. Only the fax machine, which, to be fair, it is a fax machine. It had it coming.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But otherwise, she's one of the technologically cursed people throughout history, or at least within the last, 30, 40 years, where some people is just like that. You touch something, and it decides to blow up. It does that.
Mind you, in Angel Dust, in this most recent movie, she can use a smartphone with no problem. She could look at that picture of Tama.
I mean, yeah, but that's a convenience that you have to kind of accept for the movie.
The phone didn't blow up. Look, you know for a fact there are people that should not be owning a smartphone because they
Oh, no, that's very true. That's why we still have some people with brick phones out there, because they need them. Because anything bigger and they would explode in their hands.
Yeah.
And so Kaori goes through this montage of breaking the fax machine, the shredder, the copier.
They have a word processor, which I guess is like, it's a typewriter, but it's also like a computer that just types. That's all that the word processor is.
I made a note that they have Mac computers, but it's MACC.
It kind of looks like those are the letters. But what's weirder, though, is that, like, you see all of those things happen in the manga, but nothing specific happens other than they're sparking, they're smoking. The computer's got cracks in the screens, but in the anime, it is kind of sparking and smoking and like, just, it's shorting out. And every couple of frames, you see a Gundam?
You see a distorted Pablo Picasso-esque version of the RX-78 on the screen. And it is clearly the RX-78. I would know. I just saw the thing in person.
Cause yeah, like the faces, like the eyes are in kind of funky places, but that coloring is absolutely correct. And come on, this was animated by Sunrise.
It's right there.
We all know.
We know.
We know.
They know what they were doing.
I don't know if Kaori knew what an RX-78 was. Or maybe that's the reason why she was making that face. Like, I don't know. All of a sudden, see, I'm just trying to use this dial-up modem and I got a Gundam. I don't know how this happened.
She was trying to send a fax and she ended up trying to jump onto white base. And so everybody in the office is complaining to Sayuri, she broke everything! Why did you bring her here? She's broken everything! We have no newspaper! At the same time, these other women come running up, boss, there's a peeping Tom!
He stole all of our underwear and he's gone! Like, this seems like a throwaway line. It's not. You need to remember that somebody just stole a bunch of underwear from this office. Like, we don't talk about this. It certainly wasn't Kaori who stole the underwear. I will give you half of one guess.
And you only need a quarter
to
be able to guess who the pervert is.
Anyway, Kaori's just like, so as you can see, this is why I don't do this kind of work. And Sayuri's kind of looking like, oh no.
And as they're leaving the office for the day, I like that you pointed it out, there is a murder of comedy crows flying over the building.
More than one. There's 3 of them. So that makes it a murder.
A murder of comedy crows. They killed it. And so I guess to kind of chill out from the day, they go to like a coffee shop or something.
Yeah.
And Sayuri's thinking about, man, maybe she really isn't cut out for the. Hey, what's that on your hand? And we notice that Kaori is now wearing Makimura's ring.
I don't know that she wears it a lot, but she's wearing it now. And she's just like, oh, it was a memento from my brother. Yeah, he died, and then he left me this ring. And that's all she knows about it, because there's more of a story behind, oh, he was supposed to give me the ring, and tell me on my 20th birthday that I'm adopted, and blah, 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 blah. She doesn't know any of that.
Right, but what she does end up telling Sayuri is basically all that she knows from her side of the story. And so Kaori's telling her, yeah, about my brother, I loved him so much, and the one thing I knew he loved working with Ryo. He just talked about him constantly, and then when he died, all that he left was that position that he had with Ryo, and so, I took that up, and, I quite honestly can't think of doing anything else.
And Sayuri has to sit there and admit to herself, wow, she actually looks beautiful right now because she looks so happy. And yet that does not stick in her head after that. She's so close to getting it, and yet she can't hold on to getting it.
It's right there in front of her. Yeah. And she just can't make the jump. But then again, from the back of this restaurant or whatever, 2 waitresses come running out being like, oh my god, somebody stole our underwear out of the changing room. So that's the second time that's happened today.
Wow, crazy that just keeps happening. Wonder what that's about, as if that's not already a suspicious pattern. It only needs to happen twice to be a suspicious pattern.
Well, especially in this show.
And especially when these particular women keep hearing about it. Why does it keep happening around us? And we already see, like, off in the distance, you can tell that it's real.
There's somebody in a pair of black slacks and a blue coat running off with a trail of panties behind him.
He has somehow made it back to their apartment before they do, and he looks exhausted. Why? Because he's been chasing them around all day to make sure that they're fine, and also, just while he was out, he decided, I guess I'm just gonna pinch some panties, I guess.
Also, he, trashed the apartment a little bit.
Kaori's just over here like, oh my god, are you hungry? Why didn't you make yourself some food? Take care of yourself, Jesus.
But she, picks up his jacket off the ground, and unfortunately, falling out of the jacket there is a bunch of bras tied together.
Ryo's just kind of like, oh no, I was very careless about this. He could have been better about hiding it. He knew what he was doing, just leaving it there.
This is why I also think he gets off on getting caught.
Right, I would agree, kind of, because it would be so easy to hide it.
And yet he doesn't.
He just left it in the middle of the living room floor. And what's funny is while Kaori's over here getting mad at it, shockingly, Sayuri's actually not super mad about it. She fully realizes, wait a minute, if he was the guy stealing all this underwear from everywhere we went, that means he was following us everywhere because he was concerned about Kaori's well-being. She's not even mad about him stealing underwear.
She fully perceives that's why he did it. And so, you would think that, too, would give her some indication of, okay, maybe it's not all that bad.
Somebody's actually taking care of her, even if it's kind of weird. This is kind of bizarre, but you know what? This dude is actually looking out for her sometimes.
And so, immediately after this, Ryo gets on the phone to Sayako and complains about the dude that he had to defend Kaori from earlier, and she's like, well, I don't know what your big complaint is. And he's like, you know what my complaint is. You should have told me there was actual danger.
Yeah, but didn't she tell you there was actual danger? Yeah. Well, then stop calling.
You know what your problem is, Ryo? It's that you didn't believe. Because it's true.
Yeah, I guess he was just like, I thought she was just making shit up. Oh, why didn't you believe her?
Well, no, it's like, what is it, in Twister, when, after, I think it's the second Twister, when Melissa and Bill get out from the truck, she's like, when you always told me that you used to chase tornadoes, I thought it was a metaphor. Yeah. No, I told you literally what my job was.
Yeah.
And so Kaori, again, she's still thinking she's done a good job today, and she kind of has. She's been sticking by by Sayuri's side, she's trying to make sure she's up in her skills, right?
Sure.
So she goes down to the gun range in the basement, and she's practicing with the snub-nose revolver.
And she's not doing as bad as she often does, I guess. Like, we don't see a montage of her just completely whiffing and having it ricochet everywhere.
No, she's not bad. Her accuracy is getting a lot better, too. But for whatever reason, and I don't know if this gets explained next week or not, Sayuri has a big thing against guns.
Well, I mean, I don't like guns either, but the thing Sayuri has against guns is absolutely not the thing that I have against guns. This is like a way different problem. But Sayuri's just like, oh my god, why do you have this gun? And not just that, but like, she's done probably the stupidest, most dangerous thing you could possibly do. And run like all the way up to Kaori, who's still holding this loaded weapon, and she's like trying to wrangle the gun out of her hands.
Wrestle it out of her hands?
Yeah, and just like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to hurt somebody.
This is how people get shot.
Yeah.
Quite honestly. And like, she's jumping to some other kind of conclusions right now. She's getting up in Kaori's face like, no, you shouldn't do this. This isn't what women do. You're doing murder. And it's like,
well, for one, Kaori has never murdered anybody. Okay.
Well,
okay, debatable.
Debatably, she kind of has murdered.
Off screen, possibly. They died a little to the left.
It doesn't count if it's a little to the left, we know. But for the most part, the story is that she has never killed anybody.
And if she's really doing her job, if she's actually good at it, which, if she's good at what she does, you don't have to murder a person to incapacitate a person. You get them in the shoulder, you shoot a gun out of somebody's hand, get them in the kneecaps. You know, they'll never walk again, but like, you won't murder them by shooting them in the kneecaps.
And like, Kaori's trying to defend her position here against Sayuri, like, no, this is a necessary tool. I'm doing this for you. And don't get me wrong, she's right. In this particular context, she is right. But I would have led off with, you idiot, don't try to grab a gun from me?
Yeah, I know. But then Sayuri just really leans into, this is not what normal feminine people do. You've got to quit doing this and go be a woman. And like, what the fuck?
Yeah, okay, like, it was one thing, like, if you got a problem with guns, that's one thing. But the sexism, okay? Like, can we pull that back a little bit?
Why am I less of a woman if I hold a gun? That doesn't make any sense.
Now, to be fair, to get this across here for the sake of the podcast, I hate guns. I absolutely hate guns.
Sure. I've held like 2 guns.
I've held 1.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, and that was under duress when I did it too.
For me, the other one was somebody who was Air Force. Scared the shit out of me because he came out of the back room with what I assume was a semi-automatic weapon. And then he said, I'm gonna try and make sure that you're not afraid of this weapon. Come here, we're gonna both hold this together, and I'm going to make sure that I show you correct trigger discipline. Don't ever put your finger here, blah, blah, blah. And it got me a little more comfortable, but also I don't ever want to do that ever again.
Right, exactly. And so, like, I can understand the aversion. I completely understand the aversion. But at the same time, it's like, what does any of that have to do with, like, her identity or how she perceives herself or the world around her? Also, who the hell are you? You've been here for, like, a couple of days. You've been here for, like, 5 days, and you're already telling her how to live her life.
You don't know me. You don't know me.
You don't know my life.
But she does have very strong feelings about what a woman is and what a woman should be. And like, me as somebody who I feel like I can identify a lot with Kaori as far as how she presents herself, her own gender identity, you know? Like, she clearly doesn't feel like she's not a woman, but that doesn't mean that she feels like she has to be trapped by the idea of what is and isn't feminine. And I feel very strongly about that same thing as well.
Of course. And so, like, as if that wasn't enough, and I know I keep saying that, but to kind of, like, drive the point home or drive the knife home that Kaori has no idea about what's going on, again, Sayuri and Kaori are going to sleep in the same room. And that night, as they're going to sleep, Kaori puts the ring back in its box. You know, she's really trying to take care of that. That's an heirloom now. That's a memento of her brother.
Right.
And so she tells the ring, "Good night, bro." But she tells Sayuri, "Good night, Sayuri," having no clue what that's probably doing to her psychologically.
Oh yeah, that probably is like, oh, that's a knife right in the heart. Oh, I want her to call me her sister. Oh no.
So Sayuri, gets up, after a couple of minutes, goes up to the roof, and produces another copy of the exact same ring.
That's weird. That's real convenient. Rio is up there on the roof as well. They're talking together, and he's like, so, you got one too, huh? And she explains, yeah, we were both meant to have one. Our mom bought one for us each to have and just wanted nothing but the best for us. She just wanted us to grow up into normal women leading normal, happy lives. So why did you take away her normal, happy life? Why have you done this to Kaori?
Why did you and Makimura bring her into this life of the underworld and guns? Why did you do this? I want to say I'm okay with her being a little masculine, but this isn't right for normal women to be in these situations.
God, this is some hella sexism here. Just ridiculous how hard she wants to push into these gender roles.
And the thing about it is, I like that Ryo, again, he's not really fighting for this because I don't think he thinks he has to. Because Sayuri challenges him even further, do you think this makes her happy? Do you know what makes her happy? And he just kind of, not even snaps back, he just rolls it back you think you know?
You think you already know what it is, huh? Yeah, he doesn't really have to say anything because I think he knows in the end Kaori is probably just gonna make her own decision because he knows that's what she's been doing this entire time. Makimura never brought her into it. Ryo, on multiple occasions, tried to push her out of that life because he thought he once knew what it was that was best for her. And no matter what he did, she kept coming back to it because this is what she wanted.
This was her choice. And so Sayuri tells Ryo, all right, we still got another 2 days. We're going to see if that tells the tale. And that's where the episode ends. But I think it's really important to kind of bring up this idea of what it is that the two of them think is going to be best for Kaori, because I think the thing that Sayuri seems to have completely overlooked is that, yeah, you might be blood with somebody, but blood never overcomes the person who's there on the daily.
Right.
And Ryo is there on the daily. She has no idea the shit he's been through to try and keep her in this world. He loves her.
He has murdered so many
she
people
has no
for her.
Now, granted, she probably wouldn't take that news very well. He has murdered for her. If he just told her, look, this is the list, do this CVS receipt of these are all the people I've murdered within the last month to keep her safe. I went and got names from the morgue, just so you would know. These are how many people I have willingly offed and unalived to make sure that she could continue having the life she chooses to live.
And it is her choice. That's the thing she doesn't understand. Whether it's a feminine thing to do or a masculine thing to do, who the fuck cares? It's her choice, and it makes her happy.
That's the ultimate thing, is she's so happy looking when she's talking about working with Ryo there at the cafe.
And no matter how masculine either of these people thinks she is, when she is happy to both of them, she's beautiful.
And Ryo knows that. Ryo knows what she looks like in all of her different versions of herself. When she's done up, when she looks more masculine and is, toting around a bazooka. He knows what she looks like at her worst. He knows what she looks like at her best. And he loves all of that together.
For as much as he is an asshole and jokes about, oh, I wouldn't bang somebody who looks like a dude, he's fucking lying to himself.
Well, yeah, he's gotten boners for her that he's forgotten to cover up.
He loves her for the totality of who she is.
And really, isn't that what anybody wants?
Right. I really feel like, for as shitty as this manga can be sometimes about how it presents some of this information, I know that this is also not the only manga that Tsukasa Hojo has written that has kind of come head to head with gender roles and gender norms and gender conformity
and stereotypes,
and stereotypes and stuff like that. Hojo, I think, is very clumsy about his presentation and yet has bigger ideas about what gender presentation and yet what family and what love is despite those things. And he's just kind of clunky about it,
Well, yeah, because, you want to talk about something, a trope that has never gone down in popularity, it's that concept of found family.
Right.
And the thing of it is, even though Makimura wasn't her blood relative, perspective, even though Ryo and her don't have a very well-defined relationship, that's family.
Sure.
Hell, I'd even go so far as to say, like, even Miki or Umibozu or Sayako fall under that umbrella a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I think these are some really important episodes here, and it's very important that we cover them. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see more of that going into next week, because those ideas have to come to a head. Somebody's got to try at least to give Kaori this information. And we also have to deal with whoever the hell it is that had that knife earlier.
Yeah, what the fuck's up with that guy? We've got no explanation of, hey, why is somebody after you? We know somebody's after you, but fucking why, though?
Well, we didn't have time for it. We just don't have time.
All right, let's go. And to be fair, that's not elaborated upon in the manga at this point either. The anime just literally, beat for beat, took from the manga. It didn't do anything wrong. So,
yeah.
You know, except for leaving out Ryo hitting himself in the face with his own penis. So, like, we really missed out on that getting animated. Are you okay? Are you gonna make it?
I don't know. We're at the just the dick erasure. Oh boy.
It's also 1:30 in the morning. We're delusional.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay.
So come back next time when we cover the 53rd episode of City Hunter 2, Reunion After 20 Years. Please Look After My Sister, Mr. Saiba, Part 2.
And if you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always follow us both on most social media. I'm at JoshKnightTheFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you all so much for listening to our 103rd episode of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, I'm gonna leave.
Wait, how come you didn't say I'm gonna leave?
I did say I'm gonna leave.
But no, you normally say I'm gonna leave.
You told me not to say that.
Oh, I did. Well, in that case, I'm leaving.
Bye.
Well,